So let's talk about the Toronto Raptors and how they're coming into next season. I'm looking at the Toronto Raptors right now, and they're just a team which they're in basketball hell right now. And the reason why I say that is because they don't know really what they want to do, and it's obvious that they don't have a career path well, they don't have a team in which they're putting a lot of trust in. They've been looking either for a big free agent, and it's now that Nick Nurse, the guy who had the blueprint for them, who was a championship coach, is gone as he went to Philly. It's like, what is Toronto going to be next year? Obviously, they have a few interesting pieces, and let's talk about it. The biggest thing for this team, in my opinion, is that they are just good enough to not be horrible, but just bad enough to not be, you know, in it, but just bad enough to not be like a playoff team. And in my opinion, this all stems from Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is a player which came into the league as a top pick, and he was originally expected to be bad. He came in as the fourth pick, and people thought that Toronto was stupid for taking him, were stupid for taking him. And he's a guy who really has, been a player who's very convincing. His first year was one of the best we've seen in a while, right? As he averaged 15 points, 3 assists with 7.5 rebounds, a steal, almost a block, and with less than 2 turnovers. Meanwhile, also shooting 50% from the field almost and 30% from three. So people were like, okay, taking as how normally rookies go, he's going to step up from that. His efficiency is going to get better, and he's going to have a bigger increased role next season. But the exact opposite happened. He got the increased role. He started most of the games. But the problem with him is that his efficiency went down a bunch, even though he didn't take that many more shots. He averaged the same amount of points, the same amount of steals, had less rebounds, and even though his assists went up, it feels like he, as a player, if you saw him and you actually were there for the season, he wasn't really making any impact. He played less minutes, played more games, and a big reason as to why he averaged the same amount of points, even though he had such bad efficiency, was just because he got fouled more and he took more three-pointers on average, right? And in my opinion, this is where it stems from for the Toronto Raptors. Recently, they lost Fred VanVleet, which was their star point guard, and that was obvious that they were going to lose him. Fred wasn't going to go back to Toronto because they couldn't pay him what he wanted them to pay them. And it really became a thing of, we like Fred VanVleet, but really how much is he going to keep contributing to our franchise when he's already older and he doesn't really, isn't really the point guard that we need, right? Like, he's a scoring guard, and the rest of their team is mostly just scorers, and there's no real playmaker. And they've made some interesting moves. It's obvious that they want to keep going. They don't want to surrender just yet. They have good draft picks. They have guys for the future. And they have experienced guys. And what they did was that they just decided, we're not going to give up. We're just going to use the cap that we have to sign good players, and then we're going to exercise, their abilities and be able to do something good. I feel like one of the best pickups that they did was getting Pirtle, or Jacob Podol, however you want to say his name, because he instantly came to Toronto and averaged 13 and 9 rebounds. He set very hard screens. He plays good defense, as he was averaging a steal and a block, and he was averaging 65% from the field. Meanwhile, also being one of these guys which gets 3 offensive rebounds per game, and in my opinion, that's extremely valuable for Toronto. And we saw it full effect last season, that at the end of the season they had a great time with Pirtle as they were making it work, and he was being exactly the big man that they needed. Right? That's their center. So then power forward, they had Pascal Siakam. He is their franchise player. he's a power forward who does everything, and he has like that Kawhi type mold where it's like, I'm gonna do whatever you need me to do to win, right? Like last season, he was an all-star. He averages 24 points, 6 assists, about 8 rebounds, on 48% from the field and 32% from three, right? And he's phenomenal. He plays a lot of minutes. He plays actually the most minutes in the NBA for 2 seasons in a row now. Like, and he's one of these guys who you just can rely on that will be great and will be there and consistently show up for this team, even if no one else can show up, as he always plays a lot of games and is always available. And in my opinion, those are the two people. That's like your front court, right? That's your two big men. That's who you're building around, right? And then they have a series of small forwards which they can use. They have Otto Porter, which even though he's played center, he's closer to like a stretch three, right? They have Scotty Barnes, they have OG Anunoby, and it's really become like, who are you running at these positions? Because they're all the same type of, player. Last year, OG Anunoby had his breakout season where he averaged basically 17 points, was the steals leader, averaged almost 40% from three and 47% from the field. His market value is insane, and he's been the ideal player for this team as they have throughout, and as he made an all defensive team and was in real talks to be the defensive player of the year. The only thing that took him up on that was the fact that, Jaren Jackson Jr. was having just as much of an impressive season when it comes to blocking shots. But if we really break down the Raptors, they have like four of those guys, like the OG, the Scotty Barnes, and they have a lot of these big wings, which like really doesn't help them and has become a problem for them. But I think they're going to move OG Anunoby to the 2, Scotty Barnes to the 3. And then for point guard, they just signed Dennis Schroeder. They have Marquise Noel, which they took up as he went undrafted. And for other wings, they have Jalen McDaniels, Christian Koloko. They have Precious Achiuwa, which is a big man, and he's still young. You have guys like Chris Boucher, which are just experienced big men. Gary Trent, which will always help with spacing the floor and playing defense. And in my opinion, as he averaged 17 points last year as their starting shooting guard for most of the year, and in my opinion, really this team is good. Like, the more I look at it, the more I'm convincing myself into saying that this team is good. But the only thing is that can they actually compete? And I think the question is, who is running point guard for them? For the Toronto Raptors, that's their biggest question. Who is running point guard for them, right? Because in my opinion, they have a lot of great players. They have, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, which needs to develop. They have Pascal Siakam, a superstar. And they have Paul Pirtle, which is just extremely effective. And that's their starting 4. The only thing is with the point guard position is you need someone to play it. You need someone to get it going. And you need someone to really free up the offense because you have everything. You have a shooters in Gary Trent, OG Anunoby. You have defenders in OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Pascal. And you have all these guys who work. The only thing is that you need someone to piece it all together. In my opinion, they're going to obviously run Dennis Schroeder as Fred VanVleet left, but I think that a big piece for next season for the Raptors could be Marcus Noel, as we saw that he's one of the best playmakers in college, and he's phenomenal. So for the Raptors, that's their biggest question. Who's going to run point guard? They have a little bit of everything. Shooting with OG Anunoby and Gary Trent, defense with Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes. They have a lot of size with Thaddeus Young, Otto Porter, Chris Boucher, Jakob Pertl. They have a reliable big man. They have wings with Jalen McDaniels. And they have a bunch of players which are just good. And really, this lineup just gives me like 2019 Raptors vibes, but without Kawhi. And what I really see in this lineup is something that could be phenomenal. The only thing that I feel like they need is someone like a Kyle Lowry who can just put the whole team together and make their play styles merge by distributing the ball. If that's more Kishnell than a Schroeder, I don't know, but I see the Raptors with an extremely good team, and I hope that next season they can figure it out.